I'm joined now by Paul Bledsoe, president of Bledsoe and Associates. He was part of the White House Climate Change Task Force under President Bill Clinton. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, Elaine.
You know, this happened within the hour, but essentially, what does this executive order do, and how long would it be to where we would see the effects of it?
So President Trump is attempting to overturn regulations on greenhouse gas emissions from the U.S. electric power sector in part today. That will take a while for the EPA to actually do that. This is going to be subject to huge lawsuits. Ultimately, the Clean Power Plan will be decided by the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court issued a stay last year halting the implementation of the Obama greenhouse gas emission rules. That's a signal that the court wants to step in and determine this. So ultimately, it's going to be a legal battle.
Well, I was going to ask you about what can be done about it. This doesn't really come as a surprise to many. A lot of people watching this. He recently approved the Keystone Pipeline, the Dakota Access Pipeline. And you mentioned lawsuits. So could we see those trickling in right now?
Well, there's some things that are going to be subject to lawsuit. I think both of those pipelines are likely to go forward if, in fact, the companies decide to build them. However, on an issue like the fuel economy of American cars, the Trump administration has more latitude. Last week, the administration indicated that they will roll back the ambitious goals that Obama had negotiated with the auto industry, and that will increase emissions without question. My sense is that the courts will rule on the Clean Power Plan and probably throw out parts of it and keep other parts of it. That's what the Federal Appeals Court seems to be heading toward, and I think that's probably what the Supreme Court will do. It's worth noting that the Supreme Court in 2007 said that CO2 is a pollutant and is under the jurisdiction of EPA. Trump did not try to challenge that ruling today.
What was not mentioned specifically in this executive order was the Paris Climate Change Agreement, the U.S.'s participation in it. Where does it stand now?
I believe the Paris Agreement will far outlast the Trump presidency. 195 nations, I was in Morocco last year for the most recent meetings, have indicated their strong support for the agreement. I think whether or not the Trump administration formally pulls out of the agreement, that the agreement will go forward. I suspect Trump will not pull out because world leaders would be outraged that the United States would formally pull out of this agreement, which was really 20 years in the making. I suspect, however, that Trump will find no interest in trying to comply with the Obama-era emissions goals. Right now, the U.S. is on track to meet our Copenhagen goals of reducing emissions 17% below 2005 levels by 2020. But the Paris goals are even more ambitious. The U.S. is supposed to reduce emissions 26 to 28% below 2005 levels. Most analysts believe that those goals cannot be reached given the rollbacks that Donald Trump is in the course of making.
And very quickly, a few seconds left, how are international watchers and world leaders supposed to read into what this executive order does? And does it leave a void for countries like China to step in and fill?
I think President Xi has a huge leadership role here, as does Prime Minister Modi and many others around the world. They've got to explain to Donald Trump that this is a matter of the stability of our countries. And in fact, the U.S. is seeing tens of billions of dollars in costs to taxpayer from climate change each year already. I think Trump has to be educated by global leaders, and I hope that happens soon.
Paul Bledsoe, as always, we appreciate your insight. Thank you for joining us.
My pleasure.